I don't really understand why Samsung likes to compete with itself. It's not enough to have competition with Apple, Google, and LG, but they make it more difficult on themselves by competing with themselves. What's up, everybody? This is Scott. Welcome back to another video. Samsung, oh no, baby, what is you doing? I do not understand what you're trying to do with the S21 line. The reason that I bring all of this up is the fact that I recently just watched Travis MCP's latest video about the compromises that you're going to have out of the S21 line. And he's right. The idea that you're going to have something that gets less specs in what you just got in the S20 from last year, but more money doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I'll explain the more money thing here in a second. Now granted, the S20 was more money last year than what is reported, the starting prices from the S21 line from this year, and honestly, Travis brought up a good point where maybe Samsung's just trying to be like, hey look, my S21 Ultra is going to be that $1,200 or $1,300 flagship, and everything else below that is just going to end up being in fact below that. But you're going to be getting less than what you got last year without a dramatic price reduction like we saw from the likes of Google and things like that. Now Google just did this last year with the Pixel 5 and arguably the Pixel 4a 5G, removing things like Project Soli and flag level chipsets. But the price reduction for me was justified. The S20 when it came out was $999, so for $1,000, and $1,399 for the S20 Ultra. The Pixel 4 was $799 and $899 for the XL, and then when the Pixel 5 came out this year, it came in at $699 in the 4a 5G, which, let's be real, that's truly the XL version of last year's Pixel, was a slim $499. So for me, the price reduction in the Pixel line was justified with the items that we didn't get. Now, what are some of the reductions in the S21 line? The S21's resolution is going to go down to a 1080p from a QHD, which is from that 1440p version of the S20 from last year. Rumored to have no SD card slot, which is hilarious to me because Samsung has now been one of those brands that still has an SD card in the market and touts it as such. And even more fun is the fact that Samsung's done the whole shots fired at brands like Apple for getting rid of the charging brick in the headphones. And now in the S21, it's rumored to basically do the exact same thing. So what's actually new out of the S21 line? Yeah, we're going to be getting that Snapdragon 888 in it, but honestly, I can get as good a productivity out of an older chipset or an older device than that of a lesser chipset. And I have said this 1,000 times before. It is no longer a hardware game. For the love of God, it is a software game now. Now let's talk about the cameras a little bit from the S21. We're talking about those cameras and all the updates and things like that they're going to have is allegedly this brand new telephoto lens or super telephoto, as well as some new hardware and then getting rid of the really big protruding notch like we saw in some of the other things. But honestly, they got to figure out that whole autofocus issue that everybody was experiencing and talking about in early 2020. Otherwise, once again, they're going to get crushed in the media. Look, I'm excited to see that those cameras are going to be getting a bump from a hardware perspective to where you can also now do 4K 60 frames a second in all of the lenses like you do on the iPhone. And that's super exciting. But I'm just trying to figure out what Samsung is trying to prove here because they could literally do all of that stuff already and just maybe make some software updates. And with the ability to record in 8K, look, let's talk about that a second. At the current moment, 8K isn't really a differentiator in my opinion. So no one's watching content in 8K, so stop using it as some weird marketing ploy. And this kind of brings me to the culmination of everything that I have going on here. Samsung, you're in a competition with yourself. Samsung released approximately 52 phones last year. Might be a little off on that. And it makes their entire lineup confusing to say the least. I don't have an issue with Samsung making a ton of different phones with different price points and things like that. I actually think that's kind of cool. It gives people the option to experience Samsung stuff at a price point that they're comfortable with. However, when you have multiple devices that cross the boundaries of mid-tier and flagship at similar or competing prices from the same brand, that seems kind of counterproductive to me. What's the easiest example out of all of this? It's basically last year's device of the year, the Samsung 20 FE. It's a $700 phone that in the eyes of everybody, it had flagship level specs competing directly with the Samsung S20 and S20 Plus. So they were competing with Samsung, but it was a Samsung. Samsung, what are you doing? I'm struggling to see why you would buy a base S21 model or an S21 Plus when I can get an older Samsung that it has identical or in some cases even better specs with an SD card slot, similar camera specs, and more. The days of dazzling us with this hardware in a candy bar style phone are pretty much over. I'm not talking about the whole foldables thing. Samsung needs to take the time to make software enhancements that meet their incredible hardware. I'm not downplaying the fact that Samsung hardware is incredible, but the software is lacking compared to what they have in the hardware space. Travis was right. The S21 line is compromise city. At the end of the day, I'm lost at what Samsung's trying to do, inundating the market with phone after phone after phone that competes with themselves. So that's it. That's all I have. Thanks for watching. And as always, like, share, subscribe, thumbs up, leave a comment below, and we'll see you next time.